Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody who's attending this webinar for Continuent. My name is MC Brown, I'm VP of Products, and today we're going to be having a look at our new 5.2.0 release launch. 5.2.0 is possibly one of our most exciting releases for some time, largely because we've got some exciting new appliers in there. Before we get started into having a look at those new appliers works and having a look at the demo and how everything hangs together, just a couple of pieces of admin here before we get going. Right now, you can go down. There is a handout for this session right now, which you should be able to see in your panel down there on the right-hand side. This webinar is also being recorded. At the end of this session, we will put this recording up available on the website, and I'm actually going to talk about that in a minute. And also, if you want to ask any questions, want to ask anything as we go through, I will try and answer questions. I'll probably try and keep them for the end, rather than necessarily interrupt the flow of the presentation of what we're going to show you today. With all that said and done, let's get started and start having a look at what we've put into 5.2.0. So, as I mentioned, 5.2.0 is certainly one of our more exciting releases in recent history, probably certainly in the last few years. First time we've actually had new appliers, new targets that we're adding into the Replicator product, but obviously we're adding other features in other places as well, and we will go in and have a look at that. Right now, the thing that is key about this 5.2.0 release is that we have a new Kafka applier, so we can apply straight into Kafka and send Kafka messages based on your incoming data stream. We can also apply now directly into Cassandra. Excuse me, and we can also apply directly into Elasticsearch, so you can automatically add your data into an Elasticsearch environment and have that, indexed and searchable as part of the rest of your infrastructure for your database. We're also making a number of other improvements into the way that some of our core tools work. So we've added some new improvements to trepctl. I've spoken about some of these before, but you'll be able to see them, in place alongside, obviously, these other applier improvements. And we've also made some changes to THL, which should hopefully make debugging issues with replication, whether in replication or in clustering, a little bit easier. A couple of minor things as well. We've got a new compatibility with Vertica 8, so we've made a few changes, minor changes to our Vertica 8 system so that we can apply into Vertica 8 more effectively. And obviously we've got the usual thing of some improvement in bug fixes, a couple of other tools to make it easier to submit diagnostic information and manage your infrastructure. So I actually don't want to go down I'm not going to show you too many more slides for the moment. What I really want to do is I want to dip right in and start showing you the new features and functionality that we have. So what I've got here, hopefully everybody can see my screen here. What I've got here is I've got a MySQL server here, which I'm going to use as my basis for all of my applying and all of my data as it goes in. So this is just a basic MySQL server into which we've installed a basic version of the new version of the Tungsten Replicator. There are no changes at this point into the core of the Replicator as it stands. And obviously I can do the typical things that you would expect, so I can insert a little piece of data and we can get the information out. Let's go in and have a look. I'm going to be using these ID numbers as we go through so that we can have a look at what's coming out. And I think the first thing to do is let's go in and have a look at the new Kafka applier. So what happens with the Kafka applier is we actually apply this information and put the data out into a JSON packet within a Kafka message, and then we associate some additional pieces of information into that Kafka message that gets broadcast. So you can see here at the bottom here, what we have here is we have the command line consumer, which is reading the data off of the incoming messages that are going. Now, by default, You can see here with a consumer, so the topic is actually test, which is the schema name, and MSG, which is the name of the table. You can control this. You can control this and go out to a particular topic. If you want to control the topic name, you can obviously configure it so that it is like this, where it's obviously consists of the schema and table name. There are a couple of other combinations available. You can explicitly set either half of those topics if you want to. And at the moment, that is a global setting, but obviously we're open to suggestions on how you would do that. Obviously, there are plenty of filters and other tools available within the replicator that make it possible for you to make modifications to schemas and table names on other elements if you might want to anyway. Then you can see here that the actual message that is generated, we create a few pieces of additional metadata that goes into the Kafka message. So you can see that the operation here was an insert operation. We can see the sequence number that it originally came from, and then we can actually see the record data. So here you can see the ID and the message data that we originally put in. And then everything after this, so the commit time, source schema name, and the source table name, again, these are all configurable. You can choose whether you want to put them in or not. Some people would find this useful to be able to see when the data was actually added into the database. Other people would not be interested. And you can add all of this information into your message and configure it so that it goes across. And obviously, if we do something, like actually delete this, delete message. 2384729. Then obviously what we get over here on the Kafka side, you can see how quickly that's come through. You can actually see that we've actually got a delete operation, so that if downstream, whatever you're feeding your Kafka data into, whether it's Hadoop, etc., you'll be able to identify that this was a delete, and then obviously process that information accordingly. Very, very simple and straightforward, but relatively configurable. So there's lots of other things you can do. The message ID that is generated, which is not obviously shown in the command line consumer as I configured it here. The message ID can be composed of your primary key, or it can be composed of the schema, table name, primary key, and you can choose how you want that information added and organized. And then obviously there are a few other settings that are available within the Kafka Applier. So of course we can go in and say, do I want to retry it? Do I want to make sure that it's actually been passed through a number of different Kafka servers before we accept that message as having gone through? All of that again is configurable through the replicator, just through the standard properties as everybody is familiar with. And in fact, what I can do is I can just show you how easy it is to configure this. So this is actually the configuration with TPM for outputting out to a Kafka with all of the default settings. You can see that this is about as simple as it possibly can be. Obviously, we by the password, the port, user are not relevant in Kafka. By the port number of the Kafka server, and obviously the Kafka server host name as it is here. Very, very simple, very, very straightforward, gets the data out there very quickly. I can tell you that I made the mistake before setting up this demo. This is actually my kind of development test environment that I've been using here for the demo. I did accidentally go in and say delete everything from the table which I've been using for doing the testing. And obviously what that actually did is that created a situation where I deleted about 2.1 million records over on the Kafka side, generated each of the ones. And in fact, if you scroll up here, you can see all of the individual ones that were deleted. So all of this is available. It comes through very, very quickly, and the messages are processed really, really quickly. And the great thing with the new replicator is that we actually have new tools that actually make that a bit easier for us to determine. So I'm just going to duck out a minute. Let's have a look at a different thing. So first of all, we actually have, let me just clear this before we actually have two new commands within our trepctl command line tool. So we now have what we call a QS, which is the quick status. So the whole role of the quick status is for us to get a very quick view of what's going on without normally getting all of that data that you would get on a very, very big. If you do a trepctl status, you get 32 different properties, some of which never change, like the version number, etc., that you don't necessarily need. With the quick status, we obviously have the ability, we can see very, very quickly, you know, obviously the service is online, we know how long it's been online for. We also know down the bottom here, we can see with the sequence, we can see what sequence number was last applied, but we can also see, you know, how quickly and how up to date we are with the system. This final item just here, estimate number of seconds before synchronization, if you've done a very, very large commit, and you want to see how long it is going to be before the replicator actually catches up, show that information as part of the quick status output. And this information is actually calculated live. So we are actually determining how many rows, how many elements we are actually updating in real time, that you can then go in and say, you know, how long is it before I actually catch up. This is part of improvements we've made to try and make it very, very much easier to work out what's going on with a very large transaction. You know, historically, if you go and have a look at the replicator, you have a look at a very, very long-running transaction. It's actually really, really difficult to work out if the replicator is stalled or if there's some kind of other problem. We've actually made some changes to the internals of the replicator to make that easy, and then we've made it a little bit easier from the status perspective, you know, as this item here shows, to be able to give you an idea of how long it's going to be before that synchronization comes through. And so it's much easier for you to determine whether the replicator has really stalled. We've actually got another element. If you go in and do tasks, we've actually added a new field down the bottom here, which is the timing current event, which actually shows the amount of time that the replicator has been processing this specific event. So you can see that the replicator is in fact actually still running and not stopped for some reason. So this is actually a live counter of how long it's been processing an individual transaction. Now, obviously, because of the way the replicator works, at the moment, what it shows is it shows an increasing value here because, of course, at the moment, it's in that last transaction that is now being committed. If I go in and insert another couple of values and we go in and have a look, you'll see that that timing current event goes right back down again. Now, even better is what many customers do if they're going to go in and have a look, and I think we do it as well, right? You want to go in and monitor what's going on with the replicator. You know, you'll use something like watch, and you'll get it to refresh every 5 seconds. Obviously, this is a great way of sorting this out so that you can get this automatic refresh. However, it does mean that each time you do that, you're obviously reloading Java and re-executing the replicator every single time. So we've actually changed that. We've actually now have the functionality to, if I can type, you actually have the ability now to automatically refresh it for yourself. Or actually, better still, let's do it with quick status, and let's do it a bit faster. So you can see now that we've got this constantly increasing. You can see the figures are increasing all the time. If I actually go in, I'm going to go in on another. I'm going to go in on another window here, and I'm going to try and get this to start applying. I'll tell you what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to fix that time because I always have fun with a VM, and you get the time drift, and then the time values that you get here come over here. Funny, there we go. So we've updated it with NTP, so you can now see that we've got this up and running. If I go in and do some values, you can see that we're going to get this. We're going to get this the update just automatically. It's up there. You can see how long it was. You can see how long it was for the actual latency. Obviously, these are VMs running on my laptop. 1 second is probably not bad as an update frequency for that. But a much simpler way of actually seeing what's going on. Now, even better, if you actually think there's something now wrong with the replicator and you want to understand where there might be a particular slowdown in the overall process, we have another command now. So we have this command called perf for performance. And what this actually does is this now shows you very, very detailed statistics of each of the individual stages within the replicator. So these are the stages that say, extract information from the MySQL binary log or extract the information from a remote replicator, and take that information out and give us the statistics of the individual stages as they're processed. So here you can see the latency of each individual stage. You can also see how much time we've actually spent since you last went online processing, filtering this content. So you can see we've actually spent very, very little time actually filtering. We spent about 7 seconds applying, which sounds like a lot, but when you realize that we've processed 63 events in that time, 7 seconds to apply those 63 events. Remember, we don't know how big those events were. We can get this information in 7 seconds. You can see that there's some other time, so this is like management into the process. You can see that as well. We've got all of this information at our fingertips, so we can determine whether there's some problem. Maybe it's the filtering that's causing problem. Maybe there's a slowdown in the applier in terms of how the data is organized. And obviously, we can go through and put some new data in, and we can see this because we're automatically updating this all of the time. You can see that the latency is now automatically going down. You can see where the slowdowns, if there are any, available. So this gives you a kind of a live picture out of trepctl about exactly what the replicator is doing inside, and make it much, much easier for you to determine what's going on. The one final thing that is not shown in here is that what we don't know out of all of this is we don't actually know whether an individual event is large enough that it is causing the replicator to cause a problem. So we can have a look at the replicator, and we can see the replicator is spending a long time processing an individual event. What we don't know whether the reason it's applying that individual event is because it happens to be particularly large. Maybe it happens to be tiny, and so we have no idea actually what that particular issue might be in terms of how it's operating. So one final change that we made is we have made some changes to THL. So we've always had the THL list command, which will obviously show us the individual THL. What you would have traditionally done is you wanted to have a look at, let's say, the last transaction that was in there. You would have gone in and, say, done THL index, and then you would have gone, okay, so the last sequence is 4894. So let's have a look at 4894. Is that a particularly long transaction? No, it's not. Okay, so the first thing that we've done is we simplified your method of being able to get that out. So now we can do THL list minus last, and it will show us the last one immediately without us having to do all of that process of going away and finding the sequence number. We can also be a little more excessive. We can go in and get the last 6 sequence numbers to see if we can determine where that particular problem is. However, even better, we now have the ability to have a look at the size of those transactions without us displaying all of the information, because most of the time if we're trying to identify what is a particularly long-running transaction, we really want to know how many rows, how big was the SQL that generated this information. Are there a lot of rows in the output? Is there something that is going to tell us how big that individual process is? And so what we've done is we've actually added this new option to the output of THL. So we can add minor sizes, and what this is going to do is this is going to go us away and show us how big each of these individual chunks in the actual output are. So you can see I've been inserting single rows, so obviously it's not going to be particularly large. Let's go back 100 events though. Let's just see how big that transaction that I was doing earlier. So you can see 250 rows in some of these events. We can see quite a few, a few thousand rows in individual events. And here you can see this is the delete that I was talking about earlier. We've got just over 2 million rows in an individual event. So if you were trying to determine whether this particular event was taking a long time to process, you'd be able to go in and say, how big is this event? Is this one that is obviously going to trigger a huge amount of difference? So all of these tools work together, obviously, for you to be able to determine this. Much easier to use trepctl. You know, that auto refreshes there is available. It's available on the new perf and the new quick status command, and it's also available on the old status command. So you can go in there and get a very much simpler, and it's very quick. You know, you set a refresh of 1 second, you're going to get the information literally every second as it updates, without having to go through the process of obviously loading it each time. So all of those work together. That's how we would have a look at you know, long-running transactions, trying to understand. Those are the command line tools. I've been showing you how it works within Kafka. Obviously, Kafka is not our only new applier in the 5.2 release. We also have Elasticsearch, and this is actually running. It's running off exactly the same. It's actually running off exactly the same MySQL source as the other one. So this is a good example of how you can have, you know, one MySQL source that's ultimately writing out to different targets. So we know if I go in and have a look at a particular item here. So this is Elasticsearch. So this is the standalone version of Elasticsearch, obviously from the Elastic website. We haven't yet done the Amazon version of writing into Elasticsearch, but it is in development right now. At the moment, we wanted to concentrate on this particular Elasticsearch because it's actually slightly easier to deal with, because we don't have to deal with the problems of the Amazon library, and that's not a huge problem, but obviously it just adds a few extra layers of complexity that we didn't want. This writes straight into your Elastic environment, very similar at the end of the day to how it works with the Kafka environment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go away and get this particular item. So we can actually see here, let me make that a little bit better. You can actually see here, right, that you get exactly the same type of information as you get with Kafka, but it's written into a format that Elasticsearch will obviously work with. So this is the source message. So this is the individual row. So you can see the message here, see the ID. You can also go away and see that there is you can see the commit time. You can see the source table, source schema. Again, same configurable items as there are in the original, in the Kafka applier. Right, we can go in and specify whether those source table and commit time information is put in there. We can go in and determine whether the commit time is added. We can go in and organize how the ID is added into the system. I actually think that's an old version of the record, which might be because I've, yeah, okay. So we have other options available here into the Elasticsearch environment. So we can decide whether we're going to ignore errors when they come through on the update. Obviously, what I've enabled here, so I've ignored update errors. So you can see this is an old version of the original ID, not the one that I've just inserted. So go in and set other things. Same options apply. You know, add the primary key, add the schema name, the table name, etc. Into the ID of the data that is written as it's written now. All of this is in the documentation. You can go in and have a look and see how these individual items are configured. And then the last item in terms of our appliers. So we now have applying data into Cassandra. Let me just make sure that this one is up to date as well. So 4894, yeah. So we've got all of the information up here into Cassandra. This is actually using our batch applier. So the same technology that we use for writing into Hadoop and Vertica in Amazon Redshift. And if I go into CQLSH, you can see this is the updated information that was being written out from my source data. So exactly the same things apply. All of the same things apply. Obviously, the difference between Cassandra, Elasticsearch, and Kafka is that Kafka and Elasticsearch, we don't have to worry about DDL translation. Cassandra, there is DDL translation with the normal DDL scan templates in order to be able to create the table structures that are required to hold that data. Then obviously we translate data and data types accordingly when we write that data. But very good, very quick, very effective. Same batch semantics as you would expect with all of our batch appliers. So it's very quick, particularly on those very large transactions. I will say that you know, I did that 2 million row delete. And Cassandra was basically up to date relatively quickly because it just sits there and batches it into 100,000 rows every time it wants to do delete each of those items, and it got all of the data through very, very quickly. So those are our new appliers. Those are our new command line improvements. Obviously, TREP, CTL, and THL improvements are just as valid within our clustering environment as they are within our replicator. Sometimes you have exactly the same problems trying to identify. Obviously, if you do have a problem, one of the things that you want to be able to do is you want to be able to get that data up to us as quickly as possible. If you have to raise a support ticket, one of the ways that we do that, we've added a new command into the product now, which is called Tungsten send diag. This will go away and automatically parcel up TPM diag and then upload it to an S3 bucket that we have available. The S3 bucket is obviously secure, so you can drop files in there, but nobody can see the rest of the content. But it does mean that that data automatically gets up to us as quickly as possible. You do still need to raise a support ticket, but you can at least mark the output. I don't have Perl on this machine. You can automatically mark up the output so that you can say that it relates to this case number when the information goes up and we've got it, so you don't have to manually append those diagnostics up there. Then we also have one other item which particularly bugs me from the perspective of going in and doing a lot of the development. If you have a look at a typical development environment, you'll see that a deployment environment rather, you'll see that we have a lot of these individual items. Each time you make a configuration change, each time you do an update, you'll get one of these folders that contains the release version and obviously the old configuration and the other information. The problem with that is that over time, particularly if you make a lot of configuration changes, you can sometimes end up with a lot of directories in here, some of which are no longer relevant anymore, and you want to be able to clean those out. We do actually have now a new tool. You can see this is my development environment because I've got multiple versions. So we have a new tool in here which is called Clean Release Directory. And what Clean Release Directory does is Clean Release Directory is going to go and remove these old ones so that they're no longer here anymore. So if I go back up, we should have fewer files in there. But it's just another little item that will help try and kind of manage the environment so you don't get so many of these directories, which obviously take up space. Sometimes make it a bit more difficult to work out what is going on in terms of the system with how it's processing and particularly processing updates. So that's all of the new stuff in 5.2.0. Like I said before, we have other, the typical bug fixes. Please go and read the release notes. Please go and see what's on there. If you do want to have the new version, you're a customer. We do have a new website that went live last week. And the new website, as you can see here, if you do want to come in here and get the new release and download the new release, you do unfortunately have to re-register again. I'm just pointing that out because you can't use your old password. We've completely changed the website and the environment, but it does mean that we've got a much better environment for you to use, and we'll be adding new features and functionality to this as it comes up. New website also contains new information on all of the different types. We've also got a nice new events page that is showing you what is coming up. So we will be, for example, at Bacona Live in Dublin. And we are Diamond sponsors, and there's also new blogs, new content as it comes. This webinar will appear on our Continuent homepage as well as the information comes through. So with that out of the way, that's our new 5.2.0 release. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited because it means we've got new appliers. Obviously, there's more stuff coming. This is part of our new release schedule, which I started earlier on this year. So we have a new release every 6 weeks. We have a new feature release every 3 months. The next new feature release will actually be at the end of September. Before that, we will have a new point release that will have minor bug fixes and improvements. We're not expecting a huge amount to come in here, but we've identified a few things over the previous months as we've been working. Some of this will be brand new features, so we'll have support for Solaris environments for those people that are interested. We're also improving our Oracle reader configuration for extracting data out of Oracle. And we're also continuing to make those filter changes, which are obviously our filter changes in 5.2.0. Please read the release notes. We've got new filter and new filter environments, but I'm not making a big song and dance about them at the moment because it's probably going to be the 5.3.0 where things really start to change. But we are going to make some, you know, maybe make some filters and mark them as obsolete in an upcoming release as part of that. We've also got improvements to Redshift. We'll be adding SSL support. We've also got some really important improvements to the way that manager recovery works. We have been actually separately working on a complete revamp of the manager rules and how the manager operates and how the manager recovers, fixes different problems, reacts and behaves in different problems, changing the timing and improving the overall process with that. That's all coming on some level in 5.2.1, but there are actually some more important features coming in a later release, which I'll get onto in a minute. If we go in and have a look at 5.3, 5.3 is going to be a fairly major release because we've been working on some of these features most of the rest of the year. So we're going to have brand new appliers that are going to work with InfluxDB, MemSQL, PostgreSQL. We're going to add those functionality back. Also new Redshift improvements and support for Amazon Athena. And we're also going to have a brand new environment for supporting heterogeneous environments. We will totally change the way that the heterogeneous applier works so that it will be a lot faster. So at the moment, with most of our heterogeneous appliers, you can't actually change the number of threads that you can apply. So that does limit how quickly you can't do a parallel apply with our heterogeneous applier. We will be fixing that. We're also going to change those filter improvements that I mentioned earlier. Those manager rules will be in there. There are going to be some changes to the clustering management tools to make them a bit easier to use. We're also going to add in inline DDL translation. So at the moment, if you migrate from heterogeneous like Cassandra, like I just showed you, you obviously have to recreate the DDL as it comes across, so that you can use the new Cassandra tables as they come across, and that's a manual process with the DDL scan tool. That will be automatic in the upcoming version of the in 5.3.0. And not only will that be automatic, but it will also allow changes. So if you alter a table, at the moment that's you would have to handle manually. We are now actually going to be able to handle that alteration automatically for you. We're also going to be able to make some decisions, particularly into big data environment, whether you want to keep the old data, whether you want to archive that old version of the table, but use an updated version of the table for the new incoming data. Then there's also the very, very last item that's on here is, hopefully in 5.3.0 we will have a pre-release version of the new master deployments that are coming in 6.0, which is obviously due at the end of this year, and that will be a very, very major and substantial the way we do our MSMM deployments. In particular, we're changing it so that instead of you basically installing 2 clusters or 3 clusters and then installing separate replicate between those clusters and you having to manage those very, very separately, we're actually going to integrate all of those different elements together, and you will now just have one environment and one view, effectively creating a composite multi-site, multi-master deployment. So you'll be able to determine exactly what's going on in your multi-site, multi-master deployment through one view, through CCTRL, and get a single view. So here's a version. This isn't the final one, but this is what we're working on right now. We're just going through and trying to work out the best way of deploying this more effectively, and obviously handling the upgrade for existing customers. But you can see here that what we've got is we've got an east cluster and a west cluster, and then we've also got the east from west service and the west from east service. But it's all displayed within CCTRL instead of you having to go in and handle these separately. Better still, we've actually got this a new display here, which is called Global Progress. And the idea of Global Progress is basically this is showing how up to date the entire east and west cluster are in not only the original updates that happen within that cluster, but also the replication that is coming from the other within your MSMM deployment. So obviously this will make it much, much easier for you to manage your MSMM environments, and we're obviously going to improve the tools and add new functionality. So there are going to be a bunch of improvements to things like DSCTL and also Tungsten Provision Slave and Tungsten Provision THL in order to make some of these processes quicker and simpler. And also things like MMTREP-CTL is something that's largely going to be obsolete because you're going to be able to handle all of this within CCTRL. All of the same functionality for those of you that use composite clusters will be available, so you can go in and go into an individual cluster. You can go in and manage it. You can go in and manage it, the switches and everything. It's all now through CCTLR instead of being separate. So this is a fairly major change. Obviously, part of that 6.0 release, along with a bunch of other stuff that we're going to be adding at the end of this year. But hopefully you guys are excited about that. We will probably have an upcoming webinar that will dig into a bit more detail and show you what's going on with that, what other new features and functionality we're adding to that overall process, which will come up. Keep an eye out on the website, keep an eye out on your email box. You'll get an email about these things. We're also going to be doing specific webinars about each of the new appliers that I have just added. So you are going to get, you know, one about Kafka and having a bit more of a deep dive into that and how you would deploy that and use that. The same with Cassandra and the same with Elasticsearch. And obviously we're going to keep up with the new releases. 6 weeks time, so middle of August, that 5.2.1 update is going to be out, and that's going to have a lot of new stuff, a lot of new features and functionality, as well as bug fixes. Hopefully, not too many of them as we get them through. But that's it. I don't have anything else to show you today. I think I've probably shown you enough. If you have any questions, I mean, now would be a good time to ask them if you want to ask them as part of this webinar. You don't want to ask them as part of this webinar, you know, please feel free. If you want to, if you're a customer, you know, please use the support query or otherwise, you know, come through, email me. My email address is on screen right now. You can come and talk to me, and I'll answer any questions that you got. Also, if you have any comments, you know, requests, features, functionality, something that you haven't seen in what I've shown you today, you know, please feel free to contact me as well, and tell me what's going on. Tell me what you would really like to see in your new product. We are adding new stuff all the time. We are working on stuff which we are not talking about and is remaining a little bit secret, just because we're trying to get that stuff into a position where I feel ready to be able to talk about it, knowing that it's going to be in a future release. But you know, free to reach out, feel free to contact us, ask us any questions, and we will do what we can. And that's it. Nobody's asked any questions, so maybe I've done a good job in telling everybody what's coming up in this release. If not, do contact me. But otherwise, thank you very much for your time today, and hopefully we will see you all again soon. The next training session is next Tuesday, and which is on the connector, and the next webinar will be in 2 weeks' time, a topic to be determined. But keep your eyes peeled and see what happens with that. But thank you very much for your time, everybody. I hope everybody has a very good day. Goodbye.